As Kenya is moving out of the cold season and into warmer weather, I thought today I'd like to talk about the geranium plant. The geranium plant always reminds me of summer because of the brilliancy of its flowers. Look at that. And I have geraniums littered in every aspect of my garden. So what I'd like to talk about is there are 3 types of geraniums that I've picked. One is the hardy geranium, the other is the ivy geranium, and the one which blows my mind is the scented geranium. I'm Alice and I'm the Redsoil gardener. So what I have here is my 3 types of geraniums, and actually as the weather started getting warmer I did go out and buy some geraniums so that we could talk about it today. Now this one here is quite distinct. It's called an ivy geranium. Now the thing about the ivy geranium is the leaves. These leaves are very different and they actually do look like an ivy, and that's why they call it the ivy geranium. Now the next thing about the ivy geranium is that they do eventually fall over, and they're great for hanging baskets because you get all this trellis falling over. And the difference between this and the other type of geranium is that the stalk of the flower is usually longer. It doesn't go into a mold as in this type, but all these flowers do sort of stick out, and it looks stunning. So basically this is one type of geranium. Now the other geranium I have is this one. It's a hardy one. Now I've just planted it and I've put it in perlite and a rich organic soil. But the thing about geraniums is that with this particular one, it will fill out, and I'll show you something what we can do to make it really full. But it doesn't really grow as tall. All the flowers don't grow as tall as the ivy geranium. So they're great, for example, I would put it on a wooden trunk, which I have many in the garden, and just have it on eye level because it doesn't grow that, you know, sort of big and voluptuous, but it does keep this sort of shape. And here I've planted all these different types of geraniums, and have a look at the flowers. Some of them have this beautiful pattern on them and in different shades, and they look stunning. Now the last geranium I'd like to talk about is the scented geranium. I do keep it in my vegetable patch, but I just love the smell. If you cut one of the leaves, crush it, and you do get that smell of geranium, and they use it a lot of the oil in aromatherapy oils, and it's amazing. So I do always keep it there, and sometimes before I go to sleep I crush a little bit, put it on my pillow, and then you still get that lovely smell. Now the thing about geraniums, although they do look different, is the propagation is still the same for all the types. So I'm going to show you what to do with geraniums later on in the episode. So you may want to know what to do and how to display your geraniums. Many people, like in Europe, is that you do have your container where you hang your basket over your balcony, and this is the sort of geranium I would have, because it does get very full and it doesn't grow tall, so you could have that. Now the other thing is that you could still have them in hanging baskets. Do check out our episode on hanging baskets, and then just get to know the size of the basket that you want and how many times a week you need to water it. I usually do my finger test, an inch and a half, test it in the soil. If it's wet, then the geranium doesn't need water, because the problem with geraniums is that their roots don't like to be too close to water, and they could get root rot, and you don't want to lose your plant. Now this ivy geranium, as I just planted it 2 days ago, it could do really well in a hanging basket, because basically as it grows it'll trellis down as an ivy, and you could have other things in here, but this is lovely in a hanging basket. But what I'm going to do is perch it on something and let it just take its own glory. For propagation of geraniums is actually very, very simple. Now what I've done is I've taken a stalk from the hardy perennial geranium. This is one of the stalks, and all I have to do, as we know, is just remove the leaves. And what I'm going to do is, maybe I'll just keep the 3 of them, and all I do is I look for the nodes, and here we have 2 nodes, one there and one here. And all I'm going to do, this is a soil, I'm just going to stick it in the soil like that. There is one propagation. Let's try it with another. And what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to take, this is the ivy, which I've snipped. And again, these are the nodes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove some of these leaves, so we're not putting too much energy in the leaves. So I'm going to snip it off. And then what I'm going to do is, I've seen a flower that is coming up, and we don't want to give energy to the flower, so I'm going to snip that one off. So I'm just going to clean it out a bit here, and then I'm going to put it in my soil. So I'm going to put it right here, so we'll have 2 propagations in one pot. And make sure that the node is under the soil. So the other method that I'd like to show you is a water propagation. I've taken this geranium from my garden, and again we're going to follow the same principle that we always do, is remove the leaves. I'm going to chop them off. And then here are my nodes. So I have 1 node, I have 2 nodes. So what I'm going to do is just put it in water and let it sit there. And soon out of the nodes, I will get a propagation, I will get rooting. And then from there, I'll move it into a smaller pot. And then from there, I'll introduce a bigger pot and then bring it out in the garden. And when you do propagate with water, is try not to have full sun, because the plant is still young and is still a baby, and you don't want to scorch the leaves. So this is one method. So we've got there. Now what happens is, I'm going to show you, I did do some propagations just using the geraniums in my garden, and these are some of the propagations that I did with soil. And so what I'm going to do is, they look quite healthy, but the only thing is that I haven't tested them to see if the soil propagation worked. So we'll do it together. So here is one of the plants, and I'm going to just tip it over. There you get. That's a soil propagation, and I've got a really good rooting system happening there. And this can be planted in a pot and then eventually introduce it into my garden in full sun. Let me try another one. I'm going to just put this aside, and let me take the bigger one. This one. This was a bigger stem, so I'm going to just tip it over and let's see how the rooting went on. Okay, I've got a bit of rooting there, as you can see, but this is not so well developed. I'm going to put this one aside. So basically what we've seen is all these propagations that we did using soil, is all of them have rooted. So now that we've done these 3, again now I go back into my centered geranium, and I will do exactly that. I will cut it just below the node, like that. So with this one, again, I'm going to do exactly what I did with these ones. I'm going to ensure that my nodes It's always good to have two, but I'm going to make sure that these nodes are in the soil, completely in the soil, and that's where your rooting is going to take place. So we have the ivy geranium, we have our scented geranium, and this is the other hardy geranium. And all those are being propagated, and we will soon get babies. As we see, is that geraniums, it's all about their blooms, you know, it's all about their blooms. And now we understand geraniums is that basically they're sun-loving, and the more they're in the sun, the more blooms you're going to get. Now, the other thing, what we could do to assist is that any spent blooms, just get rid of it, because then the flower will get encouraged to produce some more blooms. And I'm going to show you something. Like if we go into this ivy geranium, where you're going to remove the bloom is just here at the junction where you normally get the node forming. So what I'm going to do in order to assist that one to have a lot of energy and to be sprouting out, I am going to simply cut the spent bloom from there. This is the flower baby. So to encourage to give more energy there so it blooms, I'm going to go in here and just snip this one because it's about had it. And that's how you go around. It's called deadheading, is get rid of the spent blooms and your flower will bloom and bloom and bloom again. So the other technique I'd like to show you is, again, here is my scented geranium and it's looking a bit sort of, you know, just three branches, and I'd like to get it full, and so I can shape it, and then once it does get sort of more foliage, it'll look more attractive. So again, I'm going to just show you what I'm going to do is the pinching technique, where I'm going to the top of the tip of the plant, and all I do is take my fingers and nip it, and there you go. Just remove the tops. So fellow gardeners, I'm so happy to show you my geranium plants, and do get some geraniums, because especially for those in Europe, it's summer and it's geranium season. For those who live in Africa, as I am, we're getting into the warmer weather, and soon these geraniums will just be flowering all the time. Don't forget to like, it means a lot for us, and don't forget to share it with your friends, and always press that notification button, because we always upload our videos on Tuesday. And hopefully do share your tips, because I would love to learn from you just as much as I try to give you information that I know. So have a lovely summer, and do put your geraniums out and have abundance of colors. Thank you so much for joining us. Till the next episode. Bye bye.